Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Dr. Kirsten Protherough and I'm the chair of the Community Hospital Association. And this is our first networking and leadership session that CHA is making. And we've kindly been sponsored and in partnership with Maryland Bakery, who's going to do a really interesting talk about nutrition. So thank you for joining. What I would say is if you've got a question, a burning question that you think of during the talk, put it in the chat, Phil and I will monitor the chat. And at the end, there definitely is going to be time for question and answer session with Maryland Bakery and Noor the Dietitian. We've also got Phil Shelley here today, who ran the NHS England independent review for hospital food, which is really interesting. So we're going to also get to hear from Phil as well today. So it should be a really interesting session, and I'm really glad that you've all joined, and that I know that we've attracted a lot of dietitians and catering managers in community hospitals to this talk today. And as a community hospital association, we really want to represent the full communities within the community hospitals. So we'd really encourage you to join our Community Hospital Association as well, so you can be kept up to date with UK-wide topics and networking within community hospitals. And so feel free to use the chat. If you've got any questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end where you can unmute and call out and have a bit more of an interaction after the presentation. So now I will hand over to Brett and Noor, who are going to take this presentation today about such an important topic, nutrition in hospitals and for patients who are rehabilitating in community hospitals. Okay, all right, Brett.
Yeah, thank you, and a very good morning or afternoon as it is now, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time to join this call. I'm Brett Fowler. I'm the sales director here at Queensland Bakery. I'll go into a little bit more detail as to who we are shortly, but I just thought if those of us that are going to be presenting did a quick intro as to who we are, then it will hopefully make it clear. So, Noor, do you want to just unmute and just give us a bit of quick brief overview as to you and your role?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Noor Al Refae and I'm a learning disabilities dietitian at present. I've been a dietitian for around 11 years now, really diverse background in terms of food service, diabetes, community hospitals, acute hospitals, etc. So really excited to be here today. So thank you for having me. And I'll hand over to Phil then.
Thanks, Noor.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Phil Shelley. I'm Senior Operational Manager at NHS England, and I'm National Lead for Food, and privileged to be part of the conversation today.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So just to be clear, we have been working with Phil and Noor very closely on the project we've been doing within healthcare, which is why we invited them onto the call today. So I hope they will get some value from it. As Kirsten pointed out,
the Bluetooth connector.
If you do have, so I think there's a few unmuted. If you have a moment to mute, that'd be amazing. So if you do have questions, feel free to interrupt us. We will be running through a short presentation and then have Q&A at the end. Otherwise, we do want to keep this interactive, so we don't want to just listen to ourselves. So the more questions there is out there, then you've got professionals on this call that can help. So let's kick this off, get the show on the road. So Phil, I don't know if you want to, from an NHS England point of view, just talk to us about the importance of snacking and NHS exemplar sites, etc. Over to you.
Yeah, of course, Brett. Thank you. Well, even though the food review was under difficult circumstances, I feel really privileged to have been part of that in 2020, and there were many lessons for us to learn, and I believe use as a springboard and a catalyst for change. One of the main changes that took place was the collaboration between nurses, dietitians, and catering teams. We know that as a team, we often call that the power three. And those hospital sites that are doing great things have normally got a really strong working relationship between those parties. I also think that that partnership made a really significant difference in the openness and the confidence between colleagues. Sometimes that wasn't a natural conversation, but hopefully some of those barriers have been broken down. If we want to move things forward as a service, it's important to have that trust in each other. And I think that takes us from being a good service to an excellent service. Two of the key recommendations within the review kind of covered mandatory food standards and having flagship sites. We now know them as exemplary. And I think this was born from our expert panel, providing us with the examples of good practice, strong leadership, and a clarity of how we put food at the center of recovery. And a number of our expert panel have gone on to support trusts and support suppliers with their expertise and their time. And I'm extremely proud that Noor is very much continuing that trend. So thank you, Noor, for doing that with Mary Bake. What we have identified is that meal times and snack opportunities need to change. I don't believe that strict timelines for meals is suitable for everyone in hospital. We need to provide a natural flexibility, which of course is best suited to empowering recovery for our patients. And having met recently with Brett and the team at Queensland Bakery, I've been incredibly impressed with their attitude, their willingness to be part of a change that needs to happen. There's no doubt they're innovative and they're willing to listen to customers as well as listen to other experts in the field. What we're trying to get is choice as well as availability. We're trying to get that nutritional density and the portion size right, hoping that our patients, one, will like them, but also as they graze throughout the day, then this is an opportunity for them to top up their nutritional support. I think this team are really well positioned, but it is only the beginning. And I think today's webinar, with the questions that we will face later along with the presentations, will put us all in a stronger place and help us understand how we're trying to improve our services. Brett, I hope that helps as an opening gambit.
Yeah, that's amazing, Phil. I think it's, like we've always said, it's good to hear from an NHS England point of view the work that's going on. And we've worked with Phil now. We've known Phil for many years, but on this particular project, we've worked with him for the last probably 12, 18 months. And I'll just say the passion that's there to make changes across the NHS is just, we just sit in admiration of it, to be perfectly fair. So we appreciate the support that he's given and the help, because what we've done, the work we've done and we are doing is very much being driven by the needs, NHS England and dietitian input, especially from Noor, and I noticed Nicola's on, so thanks for joining, Nicola. Okay, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pass on to Noor. I'm going to share some slides, if that's okay, and hopefully everyone can see. Can you see that, the shared screen?
Yeah, I can see that, Brett.
Perfect. Noor, over to you.
Thanks, Brett, and thanks, Phil, for the kind words as always. So yeah, it's great to be here today, and I'll be talking about the important role that snacks really play in supporting patients from a food first or food-based perspective. I have prepared a short presentation just to try and keep me on track, because I do tend to deviate, and hopefully there'll be some time for questions at the end as well. So next slide then, please, Brett. Great, thank you. So I know we've got a lot of different professions on the call today, really experienced people, but I just thought it was important just to go through malnutrition again, and give some sort of additional context and reiterate some of the key points in terms of its impact. So as you can see on the slide here, there are approximately 3 million people in the UK who are malnourished or at risk of malnutrition. And obviously it's something that we frequently see in hospitals as well. I can hear an echo in the background. Is someone on, can someone be mute, please? Is that okay? I'll just continue, but if you're able to mute, that'd be brilliant. So I'm struggling to concentrate. So around 1 in 3 adults aged 65 years and older and over are admitted to hospital and are either malnourished or at risk of malnutrition. But additionally, there is a massive cost to the health and social care system, and that's estimated to be around 23.5 billion each year. And when I read that, I was absolutely shocked myself. When you've just got it in that figure there, you can really see, you know, that wide impact that it's having on our health and social care sector. Additionally, there is those wider impacts as well. So we know people that are malnourished will see their GP perhaps twice as often, are more likely to have hospital readmissions and also have longer hospital stays. And something else I just wanted to point out quickly as well is that we are living longer, which is absolutely brilliant. And from some of the findings, in around 50 years' time, there's projected to be an additional 8.6 million people aged 65 years and over in the UK, and the 85-year and over population group is set to double by 2041. So something I just wanted to kind of like mention here is that, you know, it's great that we're adding years to life, but we also have a responsibility to bring life to those years and not just adding those years to life. And what I mean by that is helping people to keep independent, mobile and well nourished, most importantly there, for as long as possible, which is why we're here talking to you. Next slide then, please, Brett. Thank you. So as you can see on here, there's a lot of reasons why patients don't meet their nutritional requirements. And obviously this slide is not exhaustive by any means. We'd be here all day if I went through every single factor, but it just highlights some key examples. And just to go through a few, we know patients a lot of the time may lack or have, you know, no appetite. They have early satiety, so feeling full really easily and quickly. They also can have increased nutritional requirements, so protein, calories, you know, electrolytes, those type of things if they're having losses, and also experience disease-related symptoms. And that could be things like pain, it could be fatigue, it could be nausea, it could be a variety of symptoms that they're presenting with and experiencing that could impact on their nutritional intake and nutritional status. There's also things like medication and treatment side effects, which we know can affect, again, somebody's nutritional intake, may even experience swallowing difficulties, and finding it, you know, really difficult to meet their needs due to that. From a psychological perspective, they may even be experiencing anxiety, you know, even being in a hospital setting that's not familiar for them, you know, they're uncomfortable, there's a lot going on, they're, you know, feeling unwell at the moment, and that can all, you know, have an impact on somebody's nutritional intake. And then finally, just the last point on here about the environment and hospital itself. So as Phil mentioned, you know, about those kind of rigid meal times perhaps doesn't meet the needs of that person, perhaps so they don't eat at those meal times that have been offered in the hospital. It could be things like the presentation of the meals, you know, not presented in a way that they would like it, or the types of meals being provided as well. And also things, you know, that's sensory related. So the sound of the hospital environment, the smell, you know, the lighting, all those types of things can all influence, you know, how we're eating and how we're drinking. So yeah, I suppose the key point from this slide here is that there's multiple factors that we do need to consider from every single angle as part of like that whole person or patient-centered approach. Next slide, Brett, thank you. So I think, you know, a food first approach is really the foundation of our nutritional care, isn't it? When somebody is at risk of malnutrition or malnourished, and snacks really do form a key part in this. So they can effectively, optimize somebody's nutritional intake and support them in meeting their nutritional needs. And I know there's a lot of catering members on the call and dietitians, and you'll all be familiar with that the BDO Digest recommends a minimum of 2 different snacks at least twice a day in hospital settings. And just to go through some of the key benefits, obviously they do provide that little and often approach, and we know that having a meal in front of you can be quite overwhelming sometimes for patients, can't it? And when it's presented in front of you, you may even feel you're just not hungry whatsoever anymore. Just so overwhelming. And that's where that little and often approach with things like snacks can be really helpful. They can also provide a really good source of energy and protein, depending on the type of snack being offered, obviously, and provide that flexible eating opportunity as well, I suppose. You can have a snack at any time in the day, in the evening, before bed, rather than having those fixed meal times. So it can really support that person's nutritional intake from that point of view. They can also provide additional choice. So providing, more inclusive options. So you can have vegan, you can have energy dense, you can have vegetarian options as an example. And it's all about, giving that patient some additional choices, some additional options that meet their needs and their preferences. And then finally, on this slide, it can also provide a sense of comfort if it's something that they're familiar with, it's something that they've had at home, and can be sort of visually appealing, a nice slice of cake or something, served alongside a nice hot drink of their choice, and promote enjoyment, I suppose, when they're going through a really difficult time, being in a hospital setting, away from home, their own comforts. Yeah, next slide. Thank you, Brett. Oh, you're ahead of me. Thank you. So with higher protein snacks, now, anyone that knows me on the call, and there's a few of you, will know how fascinated and passionate I am when it comes to muscle health and protein requirements. And in hospital settings, we do see weight loss and muscle loss very frequently. But it doesn't mean that it's okay, and that it's acceptable, and that we shouldn't intervene to try and mitigate some of these risks. And I do feel that muscle loss is one of the biggest hidden risks in hospital care, and we tend to just refer to weight loss as a whole rather than lean mass loss. So again, it's just something that I'm really passionate about, and I will always talk about it. Hence why I've got slides today to keep me on track, because otherwise we'll be here until about 5 o'clock this afternoon. So to give a little bit of additional context here, and it's something that really shocks people, but from the age around 40 years old, or even in our 30s, believe it or not, we start to lose muscle mass around 0.5 to 1% each year. And that increases to more like 1.5% muscle loss each year at the age of 80 and over. And I'm really sorry, that probably dampens the mood and everything here. And I'm in the same boat, being in, towards my late 30s now. But it is something that we really do need to think about and be aware of, especially when applying it to a hospital setting and the patients that we care for. We know that patients that are experiencing illness or periods of muscle disuse, such as bed rest, and for example, if they've had a fall and they've got a fracture, and they're now needing bed rest and able to mobilize, this can actually accelerate the amount of muscle loss that they experience, and that's detrimental to their health. And once a critical level of muscle loss even has been reached, often referred to as the threshold of disability, the likelihood of multiple health-related consequences increases. And that's things like loss of mobility, loss of independence, increased risk of falls, leading to more risk of fractures, And also from a metabolic health point of view, it increases reduced insulin sensitivity. So it can really impact on that blood glucose aspect. From the evidence that's out there, the research, tells us that the recommended daily allowance of 0.5 grams of protein per kilo body weight a day is not an optimal amount. Okay, and it could really be argued that it's the minimum amount that we should be striving for. Okay, so there's a clear difference there in terms of what is optimal for our health and what kind of prevents deficiencies, essentially. And in terms of older adults, they do need more protein, and that's evidence from some of the work done by some international experts such as SBEN, the European Society for Clinical Nutrition and Metabolism, and they've recommended a higher protein intake of around 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilo body weight a day for healthy older adults, so 65 years plus is what they've classified that as, which is around a 25 to 50% increase to the RDA. But what I would say, actually, from more of the recent evidence and a lot of the work coming out of Stuart Phillips' work and his colleagues, is that the optimal amount, in my opinion, from that would be around 1.2 grams to 1.6 grams of protein per kilo body weight in older adults. And just thinking about, from a hospital setting, if people have got, certain clinical conditions going on, that can be further increased, and SBEN kind of states on their guidance, on their recommendations, even up to around 2 grams of protein a day. But obviously, as dietitians and dietitians on the call, we would use our own clinical skills to calculate how much protein somebody should be trying to achieve and have an intake of. So finally, just moving on to high protein snacks. So they are a really great opportunity to top up our nutrition, especially in terms of protein, which is critical for numerous functions, as I've already kind of gone through. And it can be difficult to achieve in a hospital setting. We know that, and we've discussed some of those factors earlier. So it can really provide an opportunity, a flexible eating opportunity to improve our nutritional intake and our status, increase our protein intake up, and provide a more of a manageable way to achieve that, essentially. So I hope that's kind of given you a bit of a brief overview in terms of the impact of malnutrition and where we're coming from with kind of a snack point of view. And yeah, if there's time for questions at the end, which I know there will be, I'd be happy to take any. So back to you, Brett. Thank you.
Thanks, Noor. That is very insightful. I've just learned a lot of things I didn't know there. So thank you very much. I'm sure everyone on this call has found that useful. So we're just going to move on now as to where we fit as a business into this whole project. So we're going to run through Mary Bake Health and the work that's been going into this whole brand and concept to really come off the back of what Noor's been speaking about, what Phil's been speaking about, and hopefully from this you'll get some value and maybe some takeaways that we could potentially help the community hospitals in. So just a bit of background. So Queensland Bakery, we're a 135-year-old commercial bakery. It's wholly family owned. We are based in Andover in Hampshire, but we cover the country. We've worked in the healthcare sector now for over 3 decades, and it's become one of our core and most key sectors that we're focusing on going forward. The business made a decision the end of last year that we wanted to put a lot more focus into it, and it came off the back of numbers of meetings we had with trusts and dietitians, where it really opened our eyes to needs within the NHS. And we felt that as a business, because we had many relationships, that we could do more. We could be doing more to help. We have a BRC AA factory here in Andover, where all the Mary Bake Health products are produced. So, introduction to Merry Health. As I mentioned, from the numbers of meetings that we have been having across the country, it became very evident to us quickly that there was a need, was more need, and we felt that as a business we could be doing more to help. So we set ourselves over a 12-month period to, I would say, probably get behind the scenes of what is actually happening and to gain an understanding. So it wasn't just a case of this whole concept wasn't born out the back of something we thought. It was from talking to people that were closest to the need and closest to the day-to-day of what happens within the NHS and healthcare settings, and to understand how we could be more of a support. So we, over that 12-month period, we set ourselves to develop a range of nutritionally beneficial products, and we utilised dietitians and catering managers to help us with this, so we could be sure that when we actually came to launch it, that it was exactly what was needed. So as a result, after 12 months worth of work, we launched Merry Health in January of this year, and so far we've had incredible feedback, and clients are coming on board as it definitely brings benefit to what they do and how they serve their patients. So our goals, what we set ourselves to do, so improve patient care through the right nutrition. So each of the products that we've developed do bring a nutritional benefit. Obviously, as we know, there is stigma around hospital food. So we wanted to make sure that the products we created were enjoyed and it weren't part of that stigma. Enhance the patient experience, so it's something that they, as I say, they could enjoy and they would want to eat. We know that there's a big focus around food waste, especially when, like Noor pointed out, when patients don't feel like eating, food's already been prepared because they may have ordered it earlier on in the day, that it ends up having to be chucked away. So these products, I'll come on to in a minute, are individually packaged, so they don't, if they're not eaten there and then at mealtime, they can be saved and eaten later on in the day. And then obviously supporting healthy lives, healthy people. It's how do we help build those patients back up to, number one, help them get out of hospital quicker, but make sure that they aren't readmitted. So that's just a very brief overview on the Merry Health concept. One additional thing we've done, which is key to the whole concept, is the colour coding. This came out the back of conversations we'd had with, as I say, with dietitians and others. We know that there's visually things, it's sometimes easier to distinguish between products. So what we've done here is we've out the different categories, for example, might be protein, might be vegan, and there's others we're developing, that each pack is color coded, so it's easily distinguishable by the healthcare staff, but also by patients if they're looking to make a choice. So as you can see, we've got a focus there on the higher protein, just to capitalise on what Noor's been speaking about. So, for example, within one of the snacks, the high protein, a 50-gram snack, there's over 7 grams of protein. In one of the desserts, because there's 2 elements of this, there's over 11 grams. So these pack a healthy, a bit decent bit of protein to help with that patient's recovery. Moving on then to what's actually included in the range. So, as you can see there, this is our snacking range. Currently there's 9 flavours of product. What we've tried to do is to make sure that the flavours are, especially when there's quite a high proportion of elderly within hospital setting, that they're flavours that they recognise, they're flavours that they bring some comfort, especially when you're not feeling well. So we've obviously got the colour coding, as I've alluded to. We've introduced easy open packaging. Again, that is key to enabling patients to actually reach the product inside. They're energy dense with the protein. All the products are ambient and individually packaged, so it's easy storage and they're long life. So we will guarantee a certain life delivered in, and they're not big portions. So if a patient doesn't have a big appetite, then these are a perfect solution. We also have the classic range, which is a range of sort of classic flavors as such. They're not vegan, not protein, for example, but they are just a nice classic, but they also do meet the BDA guidelines. Another area which we are working on at the moment is gluten-free. We don't have a date for launch of that, but it's an area we're very focused on, as we know there's a big need for it out there within the healthcare setting. We also have a dessert range. So this is like what would be served as a cold dessert. Again, it follows the same principles as the snacking, so that it's all individually packaged. Healthcare trusts that are using this, they're either giving it to the patient as a packaged product, as a cold dessert, which then, as I say, if it's not eaten there and then, doesn't have to be chucked in the bin. It can be eaten and used as a snack later on in the day when they are feeling like eating. The same unique points about it, the easy open packaging. Each portion is over 250 calories, which meets the BDA guidelines. If it's served with something like custard or ice cream, it takes over the 300 calorie mark. So they have been designed and developed with that in mind. Some trusts take it out the pack and warm it in a microwave. I know that doesn't keep it packaged, but you have that option to be able to look at that. And as things stand, there's 7 flavours within the range. Just in regards to accreditations, we view this very importantly. So we, as I say, we are BRC as a manufacturer. And that obviously makes sure that we follow the right procedures to make sure the food's safe. We are vegan approved, certified factory, and there's other things around the sustainability side as well that are equally as important. We do take this very seriously, and we're looking to where we can do more on this as it brings credibility. That really brings me to the end of the presentation. There's some contact details there, but what I was going to say is that we will be sharing this information with you, and we would like to obviously pick up where the interest is, so we can see if this can bring up some benefit and some value to your trust or the community hospitals that you are responsible for.
Thank you, Noor. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everybody who's taken time out to attend today. It's just got me really thinking about all the patients that I see in community hospitals, and this ongoing, always very ongoing issue about malnutrition within the inpatients and outpatients, and what we can do for them.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time. It's been good to catch up.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.